People in the United States are retiring early. What do I mean by that? What is early? Well, by many definitions, anything before 65 is considered early. And many people are retiring before 65. So the question is, why are they retiring early? I'm going to bring in my co host, Tony Shore, who is not retired yet. Tony, when are you planning to retire? And is it considered early?
No, in fact, I'm surprised to hear that more people are retiring early. I thought people were because people are living longer, that people were working longer.
That's it.
So,
That's true. But not according to this recent survey. This was Transamerica's survey. We've done shows on this survey. It comes out every year. This one's called The Retiree Life in the Post-Pandemic Economy. And this was released November of 2024, so somewhat recent for those that are watching in 2024. Here's a link for those that are on YouTube if you want to follow it along. transamericainstitute.org. I've certainly talked about this survey before with you, and I think I mentioned it before, which is, and it's like a little caveat, when you're getting data from an insurance company, you got to be careful about
right.
what the intent is. Now, this is a
What are they
nonprofit
selling?
group. Right. It's a nonprofit group, so theoretically they're just doing science-based research, but the study details how it's done seems to be okay and legit. That's why I come back to it. It's not some off the cuff boardroom meeting at an insurance company saying, what do we want to sell today? Fear, right? So let's talk about retiring. Now, before we get into when they're retiring, I want to bring up a couple little points here. This question is about what your retirement dreams are before you retire. So they asked these people, what are your retirement dreams?
Sure.
The top was traveling at 59%, spending more time with family and friends, 52%, and pursuing hobbies at 41%. Now, if you're watching
right.
on YouTube, you could see the little R equals next to these. That is the reality. So then they actually asked retirees what they're doing. So 59% said, I want to travel a lot before retiring, but only 36% are traveling. That's a big drop off and I think, well, what do you think is the reason why that is different than reality? The dream is to travel. The reality is you don't do as much.
Well, everybody gets excited. They romanticize, oh, I'm going to travel. But then they retire and they're like, man, the last thing I want to do is travel. Or, hey, I don't have enough money. I'm worried about my money, and traveling costs a lot of money, so I'm going to stay put.
Yeah.
So I think it's either A, financial, or B, maybe laziness, or they just want to relax. So I think probably more money, but I do think it plays into it that people, my mom always said, your eyes are bigger than your stomach, son. If I took more food and then didn't eat it all, finish my plate. And I think it's a bit of that syndrome. I like, when we retire, we're going to go to Ireland and we're going to do this or something. I hear a lot of people, I'm going to buy one of those big RVs. And I'm like, so you have an extra $900,000 to buy that big tour bus RV?
Well, yeah,
That's
it is
interesting. I didn't know you did that.
I think, I also think there's a couple of other in there. You're right. I think people bite off more than they can chew and they realize it's expensive. But I also think people travel early in retirement, and as they get older, they want to travel less. So it's skewed toward less people traveling because maybe some of these people that were asked are in their 80s and they're like, I'm not, I did that when I was in my 60s. I'm done with the travel. The other thing in here that I my guess is it's kind of like the Christmas story when Santa Claus asks him what he wants for Christmas and he can't come up with anything. So Santa Claus is like, a football. And he's like, yeah, a football. That's what I want. So when people say, what are you going to do in retirement? People just travel. Like, that's what you're supposed to say.
Yeah. Like everybody, we're supposed to travel in retirement, right? That's the answer.
That's what I was but the other ones are fairly close. Spending more time with family and friends. That's more common in retirement than they actually plan. And pursuing hobbies very close. So, here's another stat from the survey. Most retirees, 65%, said their standard of living has stayed the same since retiring. So,
that's
we always talk about how much do I need to retire? And am I going to spend less in retirement? And the rule of thumb is you spend 80%, you don't spend as much. And I come back and say, no, you're probably going to spend just about as much, maybe just on different things. Instead of travel and work clothes, work clothes and commuting, you might spend on going out to dinner and travel or something like that. So I don't think people are hurting as much. Now, that's only 65%. So there is a big chunk that are either higher or lower. So when do you think people are retiring, Tony? What's the age?
Well, like I said at the beginning, I thought people were leaning older. And when you asked me when I'm going to retire, I was thinking my full retirement age, according to Social Security, maybe 67.
67.
Or my other answer is as long as my voice holds out. But again, that's what I say now. Reality might be health wise or career wise, I got to get out of here, when I hit 62 or 63. So I don't know. It's going to be, I'm going to say typically the answer would be 62, 65 or 66 or 67. I mean, I don't know.
You just said so much in that, and you hit it all. You hit all the points. You hit all the points. And so the median is 62.
Right.
So that's when people are retiring.
Because that's when they can get Social Security and they think that's a license to retire.
Right.
Am I right on that?
Well, right. A lot of people conflate retirement with collecting Social Security.
Right.
So they feel,
which I think is wrong. But
yeah, you don't have to take Social Security when you retire. Retiring means no more working. Collecting Social Security is collecting Social Security. Retirement doesn't mean collecting Social Security, although they usually go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Much to the fault of many people.
Yeah.
Financially, anyway, mathematically. So 59% consider themselves fully retired and no longer working before the age of 65.
Wow.
So more people are retiring before 65 than after. Only 12% of retirees retire at age 65. So most people are retiring, quote unquote, early. 30% retire after 65 and don't expect to stop working, although they consider themselves fully retired. I think this is the people that are collecting Social Security because they're 67, they're taking full retirement age, and they're still working. And I think those are going to be the people like you that, hey, my voice holds out. It's not really strenuous work.
Except if I'm still working, even considerable amount, maybe I'm working a little less, but if I'm still working more than halftime, I won't be collecting Social Security. I'm smart enough to know because of shows you've done and what you've told me that if I'm going to work until age 70, I'm not collecting Social Security because it doesn't make sense. They'll just take it back and withhold it anyway.
In your situation, it doesn't because you're married and there's some other things. But maybe if you're single or if you're not healthy. But you're right. A lot of times it doesn't make sense. So, the stress of your job is, oh my God, my doctor prescribed lemon tea with honey because my voice hurts. Like that's the worst case scenario for you.
Right.
But here's the interesting part, and one of the things that the survey says, nearly 6 in 10, 58% retired sooner than planned.
Wow.
Only 36 retired when they planned to retire, and 6% retired later than they planned. So almost 60% retire sooner than they planned. So when people say I retired before 65, that's most likely sooner than they planned. And the question is, why are they retiring sooner than they planned?
Health.
Because if you say I retired sooner than planned, that means you don't necessarily want to, right?
Right. That's interesting. And that scares me because I really want to be able to work and need to be able to work until I'm 67 or 70, somewhere in there. 67 is my ideal age, but that's when I am planning on retiring. But nearly 6 in 10 people end up retiring sooner than that. That scares me. I don't want to have to retire sooner than that.
Why would you? What would be your primary reason for retiring now, earlier?
There would be 2 reasons, like, get pushed out of my job because of my age, or my company moves on,
Mhm.
or I get completely burned out at my job. That would be 1, your job, whether it's your choice or their choice. Number 2 would be financial, or health, I mean. Number 2 would be
Oh,
health.
okay.
So if I had something happen where it just was too much of a struggle to keep going with my current job, I might have to retire early.
You've hit them both. Again, here's what the data says. Among retirees who retired sooner than planned, nearly half, 46%, retired for personal health reasons,
I can see that.
such as physical limitations or disability and ill health. So, health is the big factor of why people retire early.
Yeah.
I've seen this in my practice. A lot of people retire because something happens to them or their spouse, a sudden heart event, or they work in a physically demanding job and they're like, I can't do this anymore. So their health is the driving factor for retiring early. We're living longer, Tony, but I think we're unhealthier
Mm.
than our parents' generation, relatively speaking. If you, especially if you factor in the smoking, that was the bane, because the newer generations, current generation, younger people aren't smoking as much. So I think that health reasons are the big factor for a lot of people, but it's not the only factor. You brought up the other one. Many also retired for employment reasons, 43%, such as job loss, organizational change, job unhappiness, and retirement buyout. Obviously, retirement buyouts, the ding ding ding, you hit it,
Yeah.
right? Hey, we're going to give you money to leave.
Right.
um, but it's more likely job loss because we're
Yeah.
asking you to leave. Um, Organizational changes is another fancy way of saying we're asking you to leave. Anyone that's being paid a lot, we're going to ask you to go first. Typically, the older crowd.
Yeah.
Job unhappiness, 14%. I mean, you got to be really unhappy to leave at that point earlier than you want, than you
Yeah, if you're
expected.
determined to retire when you're 67, that's your plan all along, and then you retire at 62, because you're unhappy with your job, you'd have to be really
Right.
unhappy with
You
your job, right?
would, right? Yeah.
Can't
And that
stick
could
it out
happen
another
depending.
5 years.
Right, right. So, you've hit both there. Here's another quote from the study. Alarmingly, 21%, only 21% retire due to their financial ability to do so. So they've saved enough money, they've taken the retirement buyout, or they've received a financial windfall. So that's the golden ticket. Hey, I'm retiring early because
I can.
I
I'm
I had a
financially
right.
set.
They offered me a buyout, an offer I couldn't refuse.
Or, I started early on with Dan Wendell as my financial advisor, so I can retire early.
Right. I lived within my means. I didn't take unnecessary debt. I didn't buy unnecessary things. I
Huh,
saved more than I made. And 11% of people say, I did that and I can retire earlier than I
wow.
expected because I just buy and hold, right? Doesn't happen as much as we want. That's the
No,
goal, right?
I'm
The goal is
surprised
to be
it's
able
as
to
high as 11%, to be honest.
and I think a lot of people are doing that in the FIRE movement. Remember, we did a show on the FIRE movement,
Fire, fire,
financial independence, retire early.
fire, fire.
And I said the whole retire early thing is hogwash. Financial independence is what you really want.
Yeah.
But financial independence allows you to retire early. And this is and you know, financial windfall is most likely going to be not winning the lotto, but more so inheritance.
Mhm.
So it happens, but I think 21% is low. You know, 1 in 5 people retire because they can financially do so. Retire early because they can financially do so. Among retirees who decided to retire later than planned, 68% did so for financial reasons
Of course.
or the need for the benefits. A lot of
That
people
health
stay
benefit
on. Right, right.
until they
Um,
were of Medicare age, yeah.
right. And 55% did so for healthy aging reasons,
Hmm,
such as staying active. They enjoy their work or that keep their brain alert. So, and I see this a lot. People leave work and then they'll come back to go to work just because they're bored or they feel they, a lot of it, they say, oh, I want to stay active up here in my brain. I think it's more a social interaction.
Sure.
I don't want to spend that much time with my spouse anymore. Or all my friends were at work
That's a
or,
serious one. If you're not
oh,
used to being around each other and now you're both around each other 24/7, that can get
mhm,
hairy. Yeah.
yeah. So I think though, the idea of most people that stay later, 68% did so for the financial reasons or health benefits or some sort of financial
Yeah.
benefit. That's really why people work longer.
Right.
It's very few that say, "I love my job so much that I don't wanna work." They happen, right?
Yeah, I
It
love my
happens.
job, so I
About
enjoy it. I don't know
yeah,
why I would stop if there's a financial benefit and I love what I do.
right, and that's the perfect situation for sure. But, so why are people think see, here's my problem though, Tony. A lot of people can retire because they can do it financially if you do the math, but they don't realize that. So they work longer because they think they have to because they don't have enough. And that's because there's a lot of sensational headlines saying you need 3,000,000, 5,000,000, whatever,
I don't have
You
$2,000,000 saved up for retirement. I can't retire
you can't retire.
when they might be able to retire on $750,000, right? I
Right.
mean,
Or they may could have retired 3 years ago and they just
right.
didn't know it. They're reading the headline or they're seeing what other people do. So half of retirees agree that they have built a large enough nest egg for retirement. Only half.
Hmm.
19 strongly agree, 31% somewhat agree. So half of the people say they have enough to retire, and about half or 60% are retiring early. So it seems about right. The other question is, well, are they right? Should it be higher? Um, who says I can't retire? 15% disagree. 26 strongly disagree, and almost 1 in 10 or 8% just not sure. It's those
Wow.
not sure people I wanna say, "Get sure, figure it out." But because how do you not know? Well, you don't know because it's not you don't do it. You don't know. It's not taught. Your employer is not teaching you this. In fact, your employer is not gonna want you to retire probably. So they're not gonna be like, "Hey, have you done the math? Because you should be leaving." They
Right.
don't keep working for me and making me more money. Um, I think the idea that people are not they don't think they have enough or people just don't know. I think that's the real message here is, there's reasons to retire for health, right? And some people stay on for financial reasons. I want to focus on those financial people. The people that are dealing with health issues, they can't that what are you gonna do? You gotta retire. I mean, life's too short to work till you die, right? It's those people that are not yet retired and are saying, "I don't have enough," or they don't know if they have enough, so they default to, "I might as well keep working." Those are the people that need to start thinking, am I doing the right thing? Should I be retired?" So, to conclude, I'd say that retirement can be forced on you. It could be forced. Physical, health reasons. They can be forced. Employer can fire you, right? There could be a reorg. So it could be forced on you, and you got to plan for that, but not really. You don't want to be sitting there thinking you're gonna get fired in any day. That's not a way to live.
No.
Although I do have a friend of mine that he he says to me every day, he's like, every day I go to work thinking that I'm not going to have a job tomorrow, and
Wow.
he's a day trader, so he's in that mentality of nothing's promised to anybody and treat each day as a brand new day, right? So it's a
Hmm.
good attitude for his industry. But retirement might be forced upon you, so it's better to have a plan in advance. Now, I always preach better to have a plan, but here's a real reason why. Because if you create a plan just in case you get fired or you get unhealthy, how does that hurt you? It really
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt you. But
No.
what if you don't do it when you could? What if the plan says you could retire now? Doesn't mean you have to, What if the plan says, yeah, you're 61, you can retire now? Will you do it? Well, that's a good option to have
Yeah,
because
a really good option.
right? And you won't know that unless you do the math. You won't know that unless you take the time. And if you don't do it, you'll just never know, and then you'll just go on thinking, "All right, I'll work until 65." It's not that bad. My job's not that bad, you know. I only need to work this much more because I need this much more in savings. I need to get to the $1,000,000 mark. I'm only 200,000 away. That's not a that's a bad system. You're better off getting the answer from a professional that says, "You know what? You can retire now." Or, "No, you need 200,000 more." Better to have someone tell you that than to just kinda guess and not know and just say, "Yeah, I'm gonna retire at 67 because I don't know. That's my full retirement age. The government says so."
Yeah. No, that's not a good reason.
Right, but if you don't do it, you might just wind up working for no reason other than to
Right.
work, or from just apathy of not knowing and not wanting to do anything crazy, or the flip side, you might get fired or you might become unhealthy and you have to leave work, and then you hit the panic button because you didn't even plan, right? But if you plan and it says, "Yeah, I have to work 2 more years," and then you get fired, then "All right, I already did this plan. I need to work 2 years. I gotta figure out a play to get me 2 more years of income. Let's revisit that." Or if you do the plan that says you can retire now and you're like, I don't mind," and then you get fired, you won't go, "Oh my god, I can't." You'll be like, "All
Right.
right, I was waiting for that. Can I get a severance?" Right?
So no matter what, have a plan in place.
I just don't see how it hurts. I really don't.
Yeah, it can only help. And especially if you're working with a financial services professional, somebody who's looking out for your best interests to help you avoid costly mistakes along the way and plan for crazy things like inflation and interest rates,
Right.
right?
And also it eliminates some of the fears. Because a lot of people fear things. It was in this study too. They fear Social Security running out. They fear mental illness, like dementia. They fear, very common things. But certain ones of those can be eliminated by information. I fear running out of money. All right, well, we did the math. The only way that's going to happen is if you do X, Y, and Z. Well, I'm not going to do that. Well, then you don't have to worry about running out of money. But I like to fear running out of money because that's what everyone says I should fear, right? I wanna fear something, can I? Well, fear not traveling enough, right? Fe
Right.
fear missing out, I forget what
FOMO.
the name of there was the Man in the Mountain, the Man in the Mountain, there was that face, the portrait the out of stone in New Hampshire, I think it is.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah.
fell. It's like, fear missing that. You should have gone and seen it when it was
Yeah.
there. Now you can only see it in pictures. That's the kind of fear that's justified, not running
Yeah.
out of money. And yeah, I don't know what made me think of that, Tony.
Interesting
Maybe it's a
analogy,
very
man.
chiseled face I'm
A
looking at.
chiseled face falling. See, you should have went and saw that face in the rocks, kids, when dad told you.
See, now that's the takeaway.
Good
Create a
job.
financial plan. It only can help. That's what I wanna conclude with, Tony. I don't think anyone can disagree with that.
Right.
Why not? Really, why not?
Yep.
Even if it's a rudimentary plan, at least start with somewhere and eliminate a lot of the fears, eliminate a lot of the unknowns. And if something happens where you're forced to retire early, you'll have a plan. If it's not, you might have the plan to retire before you need, plan retire early just because the math says you can do it. And best case scenario, it says you can retire now and you say, I don't want to. That's okay
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
No one's telling you
Bonus.
just because the plan says you can retire now that you have to do it. But if you don't have it, you're just going to go through mindlessly until someone plays your hand for you.
Yeah.
Take control. Create a plan. That's the message. Tony, thanks for another
Good
good
message.
show.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Stone face. Catch you next week.
All matters discussed in today's show are for informational purposes only.
This show is not investment advice.
Dan Riddle nor Dolphin Financial Group are affiliated or endorsed by any government agency.
Investment advisory services are offered through Dolphin Wealth Management, Inc., a registered investment advisor in the state of Florida.
Insurance products and services are offered through Dolphin Insurance, Inc.
Dolphin Wealth Management Inc. and Dolphin Insurance Inc. are affiliated companies doing businesses as Dolphin Financial Group.
You should talk to someone at Dolphin Financial Group before implementing any of these strategies or ideas.